How do you capture a mind-bending, abstract story like Absolute Martian Manhunter in a single drawing? That's what I was trying to figure out after I finished reading Absolute Martian Manhunter Volume 1. Lately, I've been challenging myself to draw fake covers after reading comics as an exercise to improve my compositions. My goal for this piece was to make it as eye-catching as possible. When I create a piece, I try to have a specific goal in mind, whether it's improving my gesture, color palette, or in this case, composition. That way, I'm more likely to be satisfied with the end result and I improve a bit each time. For the fake cover assignments, I'm trying to capture the story in an image, but I'm also trying to create something striking. In my head, I'm imagining it sitting on a shelf amongst 100 other books, so it needs to stand out. For my first fake cover assignment I gave myself, I drew a cover for Absolute Batman. I genuinely think it was one of the best pieces I've ever drawn, and I had a total blast drawing it since I rarely draw gritty scenes. For that, I started by looking at the Absolute Batman variant covers, which are freaking gorgeous, and I love the red ones, but I chose to do a green and purple color palette because I hadn't seen that yet. I started with drawing a bunch of thumbnails to come up with a new composition, and I chose this one because I found it the most interesting, and I also felt it captured the atmosphere of the story. I put this hand here to frame Batman, and I have these leading lines drawing the viewer's eye towards him. I use the rule of thirds and place his head on one of the focal points. I also made him the highest point of contrast by placing all the big green moon behind his head. I placed him to the side thinking it looked more interesting and would lead into the next page better as if it were a real book, which would be opened. I also liked the exhausted, hunched over pose as if he's gone through and defeated this giant pile of party animals and is just absolutely done. But despite all of this, I don't think I was successful with this image. I drew Absolute Batman in December, and since then, the Absolute Batman Arkham one shot has come out, only 6 days ago as of filming. And this is the main cover. It has a similar pose and a similar color palette, but this image is way more striking. I analyzed it to figure out why it works so well and if I can apply that to my current Absolute Martian Manhunter art. The first thing I noticed with this is that he's centered right in the middle. I usually try to avoid symmetrical compositions with characters completely centered because it can be stiff, but when done with intention, it can have incredible impact. I realized a lot of amazing covers are completely symmetrical. The second thing I noticed was the color palette is green and purple, but it's much more saturated with almost neon green and deep, rich purple rather than the pastels in my one. The value range is also much wider with more black blacks and brighter highlights. The high contrast in both value and hue is incredibly striking. I usually use much more saturated colors, but since I'm new to the dark, gritty atmospheres, I hadn't even considered them a possibility. The last thing I noticed is that the pose is stronger. Even though it's a similar pose, in my one he's going limp, and in this one he's tensed up, which is most apparent if you compare the hands in both pieces. To me, the tensed up pose has a lot more energy and presence. To make my pose stronger, he could have had a more energetic, classically heroic pose like I initially had on my thumbnail, but that doesn't feel right for Absolute Batman since he isn't a classic hero. What I thought would have worked better is if he had a clear sitting pose, as if he's dropped to his knees or hunched down in some way. That way it's still the after the battle is over type vibe, but it's stronger than just going limp. Because of these reasons, I think mine works well as a scene, and I'm very, very proud of it, but I don't think it's effective as a cover. So, I'm taking those three ideas: one, the strong centered composition, two, the high contrast, eye catching color palette, and three, a strong pose, and I'm applying them to my Absolute Martian Manhunter piece. For my Absolute Martian Manhunter piece, I started with doing 9 thumbnails. I was inspired by the Beatles' Yellow Submarine type psychedelia, which lends itself well to these centered compositions. I narrowed it down to my favorite four. The first one is a bit Junji Ito, and I think it's fun with the Martian swimming. The second is fun too, and I think captures the story well, but since it was the first one I came up with, I thought it was probably the least creative. The third is quiet and nice, and it captures the relationship between the Green Martian and John. Not super energetic for me. And the fourth, I think, is the coolest and most creative idea and references my favorite scene from Volume 1, where the Green and White Martian are fighting. I decided to post a poll on my Instagram asking which of these is the most striking, and I was shocked by the results. The second one won by a long shot. I was confused since I think it's not as creative as the last one I came up with, but after some reflection, I realized it's more striking because it has a clear focal point, that same strong centered composition we're talking about, and better values. If I was a person browsing in a store, I would probably be more drawn to that one than the last one, which is a bit too abstract. So that's the one I decided to go with. I'm also glad to be doing this one because it's the only one I did with Bridget and Tyler. I really, really like Bridget. She felt so strong, and every scene with her felt so real, which for me helped balance all the abstract psychedelic weirdness of the actual battles. She really helped ground it for me. I kept her in her PJs, which contrasts with the rifle in a way that I think is kind of creepy but kind of fun. I really like the other thumbnails though, so I'll probably do one on my Absolute Martian Manhunter issue 1 sketch cover, which I'm really excited about and I'm getting today. I'm also glad to get Tyler in there because I'm guessing he's going to be important later. The last page of issue 6 was so haunting and left me with such a sense of dread, but I'm glad they did the Martian vision effect again. That was like seriously so cool and creative, and I love that it only works in print. Having digital versions of comics is handy, and I appreciate the convenience, but nothing beats having it in your hands. Here, I redrew the Martian's hands around John's face 3 times because I drew them too stiff at first. I wanted them to be more blobby like clay. In Absolute Martian Manhunter Volume 1, they have photos of the maquette they made of the Green Martian, and I loved seeing it. I feel like the sculptural quality of the character design really came through in the art, so I wanted to carry that over into my piece. I love the art in Absolute Martian Manhunter. The colors are a bit jarring to me at first, but they totally capture the chaos and mind meltingness of what's going on, and I'm such a sucker for art styles with beautiful flat colors like this too. After I finished Absolute Martian Manhunter, I started just Volume 1. I haven't read issue 7 yet, which I'm getting today. But after I finished Absolute Martian Manhunter Volume 1, I started Absolute Superman Volume 1 immediately after, the same night. And the art style change literally felt like whiplash because everything is so fully rendered. But yeah, that was seriously amazing too. And I'm super excited for my Absolute Superman fan art. I think I know what I'm gonna do, but we'll see. I might change my mind if I have a better idea since I haven't done a bunch of proper thumbnails yet. Anyway, back to this piece. I tried to keep the Martian and like the circles really perfect and symmetrical, but everything else I tried to keep more organic. So even though it's a very symmetrical design, I didn't use like a symmetry tool, or I didn't flip them when I drew his face or the smoke or anything. Because like in real life, humans' faces aren't perfectly symmetrical. I feel like it can feel a little stiff and lifeless if it is drawn perfectly symmetrical. So the difference, like it's probably not perceptible, but I think on some level you can tell it's just a bit more organic. Yeah, for the colors, I had so much fun. I didn't do the exact same colors as they had in the comic, but I tried to keep them in the same family. The one color that I didn't end up using that I feel like really made it feel more like the book was red. I just preferred it to sub that out for the hot pink. But yeah, you can see here I made the Martian a little bit more of a blue toned green, which for me I think is so alien. Like I think that's so green alien. I love it so much. Um, and yeah, I think the green and the orange contrast in a really fun way. I didn't fill up the like. Do you see how there's those rings above his head? There's his wife and child right above him, and there's that like semicircle, and then there's the 2 rings going outside of that. I didn't fill up that inner ring in the sketch or line art phase because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with it yet. I thought I wanted to have lines going outwards, like kind of like rays of sun, which I ended up doing, but I decided I wanted to add some kind of yellow submarine esque florals in there too. I was worried that florals didn't really make sense with the story because I don't remember there being any florals featured in it. And it's very much like in a city, there's not much plant life going on. But I thought it works because like they're they're in the center of his mind, right? And I thought the florals felt very like mind meltingy, like that's that's his mind escape. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I messed around a lot with like what kind of lines I wanted to put in there, and I knew I wanted to have those sun rays going out, but I just wasn't quite sure how I wanted to do that. Um but Yeah, I don't know. I'm really happy with how it turned out. The colors are very bright, and I decided not to shade anything except for just the face and hands in the foreground. So everything else is flat colors, which I like because that's kind of in his head, right? And then his face and hands are shaded because that's in real life. I don't. That's kind of how I imagined it in my head. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, I hope you like my absolute Martian Manhunter art, and hope you stick around to see my Superman one, which I think is gonna be pretty freaking cool because Superman's so freaking cool. I love him. And I love that his cape is made out of red dust. It's so cool. It's so genius. Anyway, I love the Absolute series. I hope you have a great day, everyone. Yahoo! Yahoo! Happy New Year! Happy New Year again, even though I've posted 2 videos this year. Bye!